Hello, my name is Eric Kelly. I am a finance professor at the University of Tennessee, and I'm also a faculty fellow for the Microsoft Excel Collegiate Challenge. Now, since the Microsoft Excel Collegiate Challenge is a really new and in many ways a very different experience than what many folks have seen before, a common question that I hear is, well, where do I start? I hear this from my students. I hear this from my colleagues at the University of Tennessee. I also hear it from other faculty members at other universities that want to get engaged. And so, with that in mind, I put together a brief series of videos here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a really simple mech case to first show how things are typically set up. And then I'm going to work through that case a few different times. And so I have a different video for each work through. And my goal in those work throughs is going to be to illustrate some of the more common techniques and start giving people ideas of where to start. And so this is the first video, and this video is it's just going to be a brute force video. So nothing fancy going on here at all. My goal is really just to kind of get through it using functions and techniques that most Excel users already understand. And then in the videos that follow, I'm going to start branching out and using some more advanced and probably more efficient techniques for doing things. So, for example, in the next video, I'm going to walk through a data table method of working through the cases. And then in the video that follows that, I'm going to write a lot of let functions. So let is it's a fairly new function in Excel, but it's incredibly powerful. And so those with a programming mind are likely to really like what you can do with let. But in any regard, I hope these videos will be useful to you if you're wanting to get involved in these challenges. And I also hope they'll be useful to you independent of that, because my goal is to offer some new and creative ways just to very generally think about problems and solve problems. So hope you enjoy the series. Well, let's take a look at the case. Case I've selected is called the Mech Speed Challenge. The Mech Speed Challenge. And this was originally debuted, I believe, in July of 2023. And so you can find this on in the XPrep site for the Microsoft Excel Collegiate Challenge if you want to download it and work on it for yourself. Now, this case in particular is about as simple as it gets in terms of what's asked of you and the computations that you're going to have to do. So in particular, it's you're just going to have a series of numbers and you're going to have to do stuff with them. So this is the do stuff with numbers case. Now let's take a look at the spreadsheet here. So I've opened it up, and the format that you see here is going to be pretty standard for the eSports type cases. And so what I mean by that is you're always going to have a series of levels. So here's level 1, level 2, level 3, and it goes on down to level 10. So this one has 10 levels. Most have about 7 levels, and they're typically going to be labeled from easy to very hard, or very easy in this case, very easy all the way to very hard. So you kind of know what's going on. It's really going to get progressively more difficult. So it's broken down into levels, and then within each level, there is a series of what we call games. And so, for example, in level 1, you're going to have an example, and then you're going to have games 1 through 10, and then level 2, you have an example, and then games 11 through 10, and so on and so on. And so each game is going to be an individual row. Now, Each game within a level is going to be of the same nature, such that if you are able to construct a sufficiently flexible model for the first game in the level, you ought to be able to either copy that down or replicate it across all the other games in that level and solve them all in one fail swoop. So that's exactly what we'll see here. So our standard tack for a case like this is within a level, figure out how to replicate the example, do it in a way that's flexible, and then just either copy it or somehow replicate it down and get everything done in that level, and then move on. Okay, so now let's jump in. Now, keep in mind, this is the first video. Our job here is just to get through the case. This is brute force. If, as I'm working through this, you think, hey, there's probably a more efficient way to do that, guess what? You're probably right. There is. And I'll try to get to some of those in the later rounds. Again, this is just to illustrate how to kind of get through the case using standard Excel skills. All right, so jumping into level 1. So we've got an instruction here at the top, says sum the set of 20 numbers for each game. So there's my 20 numbers right there. I've got to sum them and put them into that box. And so I'm just going to cut to the chase here. This one's pretty simple, so I can just use this box here. I know how to do it. So I'm just going to select all the numbers and sum them, and then Control D to copy down. And I've already completed that level. Okay, so that's pretty simple. But again, think about the process. Do it correctly once, and then replicate it as you move down. All right, moving on to level 2. So now we're going to sum the set of 20 numbers. So that's these 20 numbers. And then we're going to add that to whatever this number is. And so here we've got some range that's going to be static. And so that's this range here. And then we're going to add something that changes from one game to the next. That's this one. So we're going to have to lock some cells in place. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in here into the example cell and use that to get started. So I'm going to sum these numbers. Now I want to hit F4 and lock everything in place so that I can copy that down appropriately. And I'm just going to add to it the number that is in the X column. So I've got that done. So I'm going to Control C and select all of these cells, Control V, and I can see that my check marks all light up. And so I've now completed level number 2. All right. Let's move on now to level 3. So we're getting a little bit more complex. So here we're going to count the number of odd numbers in the set of 20 numbers. So so when I think about counting and discriminating between some numbers, the first thing I think about is there a way I can as an intermediate step look at this series of numbers and determine which ones are odd and which ones are not? And if I can do that, and then I can create some space elsewhere and assign a 1 or a 0 to the ones that are odd versus even, then I can just add those numbers together and I'll get my count. And so it's sort of a baby steps way forward in counting. And so fortunately, the way I can do that is with the is odd function. And I'm going to go out here to the right. And so an important thing I think to recognize when you're doing these cases on the front end is don't be afraid to use scratch paper. Don't be afraid to use extra space. I call it helper cells to get the job done. Don't try to be all heroic on the front end and do everything in a single cell if you can't. Use the space that you have. So I'm going to, first of all, just so I can orient myself to what's going on, I'm going to copy these headers over here. So then I can reference each of the 20 blocks appropriately. And I'm going to use the cell, the formula is odd. That's going to give me a true or false if something is odd. And I'm going to reference this cell here. Okay, so that's going to give me a false. Okay, so I've got the first cell done correctly, but I'm going to try to pass this is odd, the entire series of 20 cells. So in other words, I'm going to try to pass it an array. Let's just see what happens, because the more we can pass arrays into functions and get arrays out of them, the better later on. So let's just change this to this entire array of cells and see what happens. Well, it doesn't like that, okay? But I'm not going to give up. All that means is that this is odd function likes a single cell argument. But I can force this function to operate on that array of values in a cell-by-cell way by putting a plus here. If I put a plus at the first of the reference, it's going to treat that array as an input, and it's going to operate on it cell by cell. And so here I've got my falses and trues. Okay. Now, in some programming languages, those are indiscriminate. You don't discriminate between trues and falses and ones and zeros. Excel doesn't quite do that. So we actually need to get these into ones and zeros. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to use a little trick. And so if I do something simple like I multiply all this by 1, Excel's going to recognize, hey, those are close to ones and zeros, and it's going to convert them for me. So that gives me my ones and zeros. Okay, so ones are going to be odds, zeros are going to be. Now I'm almost done for this level. So if I want to count the number of odd numbers, that really just boils down to summing this set of numbers here. And so I've done that. Okay. And now, if I want to replicate this down the column for every level, I can copy it down. Of course, that row right there doesn't mean anything because it's blank. And then I can go back here to my ultimate output and copy what I've done there and paste it in all these cells. And I'm finished now with level 3. Level 4 looks like level 3, except instead of counting, it's going to sum. Okay. And so not too far away. Let's just take everything that we did here. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to be very careful about where I put these, put my cursor here. It's going to be the exact same column in the appropriate row for the next level. So I'm going to copy that down. So I've got my ones and zeros here, except they're going to correspond to this block of numbers, right? And so now immediately I'm almost done, okay? So all I need to do is add up all the numbers in this series that are odd, okay? Well, since I've got my dummy variables over here that tell me what's even and odd, if I can just element by element multiply this range of values by my series of zeros and 1 and then add all of those together, I'll have the sum of the odd number. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm going to use the sum product function. And for this sum product, my first argument is going to be this array. My second one is going to be this array. And there I've got the right answer. So I can copy that formula, select the destination, Control V, and paste it down. And I can see I got my green check marks. And so I am now done with. All right, now the levels get easy again with level 5. So here, do something really simple. Just find the largest of the numbers. So that's a max function. So use a max. Copy that down, and we're done with level 5. Level 6, similarly, it's fairly simple. It's just going to be a single function here. So the x smallest, where x is in this first column, and so the function there is small. I'm going to give it an array, and so the array is going to be the set of 20 numbers, and then I'm going to, as my second parameter, give it the value of x. So there's my x. My third smallest there is 19. And if you want to take the time and check that by inspection, you can. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to copy down so I can see all my green check marks. So I've got that one working fine as well. And here we are on level 7. We're getting a little bit more difficult again. And really here, difficult just means multiple steps. And so I tell my students on many problems is, yeah, you got a complex problem, but if you can break it down into simple steps, you just got a series of simple problems. And so let's do that here. So we're going to sum the numbers less than or equal to the x smallest number. And so first thing we need to do is just figure out the x smallest number. So I'm going to go out here in my white space, and we'll do our small function out here. So small, we'll look in the array of values, and we're going to tell it what the x number is. And so that's going to be the number that we're going to base this everything off of. And now we just need to take, as a next step, let's just take this array of values and condense it down to everything that is less than or equal to 19. So we'll use this white space out here to do that. I'm going to use a filter function. Filter is a function. I'm not going to show you everything about it here. I'm just going to reference it. But it's a good one to learn. Spend a lot of time learning filter because it's a great way to take a large data set and make it smaller. So my first parameter in filter is going to be this is going to be the master data set. So this is going to be the big data set. And then I need to say what I want to include. So I want to include things from the first data set when the element of the array is less than or equal to the number in this cell. And so now I can see that returns three values. So we're looking at 19 was the third smallest value in the set. So this is including the 3 values that are smaller than that. Now, get to our final answer here. I just need to sum whatever was in that filtered array. And here I'm going to use, since this filter function is returning a dynamic array. So it could be short or long. It's going to expand or contract depending on what's going into it. But it's always going to be some array of values. So I can reference that entire array, however short or long it is, by putting the hashtag sign or the pound sign. And so now I've got the sum of those. All right, so if I want to copy this down, I need to do 2 things. Let's go ahead and copy down the source data. And the filter function just lives in the first cell. It's going to spill across to the other cells. And so I've literally just got to copy down that first cell, and I'll have everything. And of course, this is meaningless, so I'll go and delete that. Okay, so you can see as x is larger and smaller, the number of cells or the number of values in the return array are larger or smaller. So now that I've got my reference data set up, I can copy my output down, and I have filled cells appropriately. Let's move on now to level number 8. And so level number 8, if we just go back to level 7, we've got this initial step of finding the x smallest, and then in a second step, getting to the set of numbers that are less than that. That's the same thing that's going on here as well. So in level 8, we again need to find the x smallest number, and then we need to get the set of numbers that are less than that. And we're just going to do something different with that set of numbers. We're going to concatenate instead of summing. And so I'm going to use what I've already created here. I'm going to copy this entire block. And again, those arrays that are returning 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, they all live in that first cell and they spill across. So that's really all I need. That first column in column AG. So we'll grab that block, and I'm going to be very careful about where I put this relative to the input data. Okay, so now I've got the block of data. It's all good. All right, and now what do I want to do with that set of numbers? I want to concatenate them. That means basically just squunch them together as a text. And so I can use the function text join. So text join takes as the first parameter the delimiter. And so in level 8, I have no delimiter at all. So I'm just going to put them together, one right after another. So I'm going to put open close quotes to signify nothing. Then I just need to say what's going to happen with empty cells. I don't actually have empty cells in the data, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm going to skip over that parameter, leave it true. And then now I just need to give it the text. And so the text is going to be this this array that begins with this value right here. I put a pound sign associated with the first element of the array, and that's going to grab all of them, however short or long that array is. And I've done that correctly for the example. So we'll copy down. And we have finished the level. Level number 9. Level number 9 looks just like level number 8, except I'm going to put semicolons in between the numbers that are being concatenated. And so it's a useful task, right? If you're just in general, if you're taking a bunch of data and you're storing it somehow in some type of delimited file, this is the type of thing that you would that you would do. So it's a useful task. So we can again start with what we already had before, and we're going to copy it down, again being very careful with my relative cell. So I need to start in this cell here. That should get me in the right place. And now we'll go over to my answer blank, and I'm going to say text join. My delimiter now is a semicolon. So I'm going to put the semicolon in parentheses. I'm going to ignore the empty values again. And again, I need to go to the first element in the array of the x smallest numbers. I'll put a pound sign after that to capture the entire array. And I've got the entire series. Copy it down, and I have completed the level. Now let's move on to level 10, which is our last and most difficult level. So here, I've got a number of things that look kind of like what we've done in the past, but they're all going to be combined together. So we're going to sum. So that's our final step. We're going to add some stuff together. What are we going to add together? We're going to add only even numbers. And the way we're going to get to that set of even numbers is we're going to first identify all of the even numbers in this set. And then second, we're going to only keep the even numbers that are less than or equal to the third smallest even number. So here, all of our different arrays that are going into our sums, they're all gonna have exactly 3 elements. And so the first thing I'm going to do, the most basic thing in this level, is just to get down to the set of even numbers. So if I can take this array and filter it down to the set of even numbers, that will be a fantastic start for me. Let's do that first. And I'm going to use filter to do that. Let's filter. And the array that I'm going to filter is the large data set. And so what am I going to include? I'm going to only include the ones that meet the condition is even. We used is odd before. Now we're going to use is even, which is going to return a true or false. I'm going to say is even. And I'm going to give this the entire array of values. Now, I remember from the past that is odd did not like an array. It only liked a single element. So we had to force it to operate on an array element by element with a plus sign. I'm guessing that's going to happen here as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and lead that with a plus. And then I'm going to give this the array. And let's see what that gives me. And looks like we have now an array of even numbers. Now, I need the third smallest of those. And so that's what I'm going to get next. Again, breaking this down into simple steps. So small, go with this array, give it a 3. There's my third smallest. And my final step is I'm going to need to sum all of the even numbers that are less than or equal to 60. Now, instead of hitting this original array, I've already got this array. And so I'm just gonna finish up my problem just with this data here. And I'll skip over here to my answer blank for this last one. So I'm going to not sum, I'm going to do a sum ifs. So the sum range, I like sum ifs better than sum if because it uses a standard arrangement of parameters. So you can add one or more if conditions. It's all going to be the same ordering of parameters. So ifs I think is nicer than some ifs than just a sum if. But that's a matter of preference. Okay, so I am going to sum from that array if a certain criteria meets, if a certain range meets a criteria. And so the criteria range is going to be the same set of numbers. And the criteria is going to be the number in that range is less than or equal to the 60 or the value in the cell there to the left. And so here for the condition, I need a string. I'm going to say, this is because of the way the sum ifs function works. I'm going to say less than or equals to, and then I'm going to concatenate that less than or equal to with the value of 60, which is in the cell there to the left. So in order to concatenate this string, I'm going to use the ampersand. That's a shortcut for concatenate. And I'm going to point to the cell containing the value that I want to concatenate. So this is going to literally read less than equal to 60 when it's all built. And there I've got the correct answer. And so if I want to copy everything down, first need to grab this stuff, copy that down, delete these because they're meaningless, coming from a blank row. I'm going to copy my answer. Paste it down, and I'm done. So that completes the case, and again, this was brute force. So most likely, I use methods that are mostly conventional to folks. Maybe there's a few slightly new things, like some of the dynamic array references. Maybe filters a little bit new to folks, but for the most part, this is pretty basic. In the next couple of videos, like I've already mentioned, I'm going to pick and choose some of the levels here, particularly the ones that are multi-step levels, and introduce some more efficient ways of thinking about those. So I'll see you in those next videos for that. Thanks.